Welcome to On Leadership, a Holy Cross conversation, sponsored by the Holy Cross Leadership Council of New York. I'm Maura Sweeney, Director of Alumni Career Development at Holy Cross, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this evening's presentation. A Holy Cross education calls its graduates to be people for and with others, and this call is even more important for alumni in leadership roles. Today, I'm thrilled to feature 3 alumni leaders in a conversation about how their time at Holy Cross has influenced the way that they lead today. I want to thank you all in advance for submitting so many wonderful questions. We took those into consideration when drafting the questions that will guide tonight's conversation. We encourage you to submit additional questions throughout the presentation by using the Q&A function located on the webinar control panel. We have a lot to cover over the course of an hour, so we apologize in advance if we're not able to get to those questions. We'll do the best that we can, but the conversation might run up for the full hour. This presentation is recorded and will be made available to all participants in a few days. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to today's guests. I'll start with Anne. Anne Fink is President Global Foodservice for PepsiCo, a global food and beverage leader with products that are enjoyed by consumers more than 1 billion times a day in more than 200 countries and territories around the world. Anne assumed her current role in 2016. She leads sales, marketing, strategy, and operations for PepsiCo's North American and global food service business, which includes restaurants, hotels, business and industry, colleges and universities, and sports and entertainment channels. Anne served as a member of the Holy Cross Board of Trustees and as the co-chair of the Become More campaign for the future of Holy Cross. Now I'm happy to introduce you to Brian. Brian Lockhart currently serves as Vice President and Executive Producer of Original Content for ESPN+, ESPN's subscription-based streaming service. He is responsible for overseeing strategy and development for all ESPN+ original programming initiatives. Prior to this role at ESPN, Brian was Vice President and Executive Producer of Original Content for NFL Media. He was responsible for overseeing the development and production of a wide array of content on multiple platforms. Brian has remained active in his alma mater as a member of the President's Council and an Alana mentor. And finally, I'm thrilled to introduce you to tonight's moderator, Chris Loeber. Chris Loeber is a partner at Pryor, Cashman, where he leads their insurance recovery and counseling practice. He represents Fortune 500 and other large commercial policyholders in complex insurance disputes across a wide range of industries. Chris serves as the chair of the Holy Cross Leadership Council of New York, and it is my pleasure to hand things over to him to talk to you a little bit about the council and lead tonight's conversation. Thank you all very, very much.
Great, thanks, Maura. Just real quick before we get into the discussion, for those who may not know about the Leadership Council, the basic goal is summed up in the mission statement. And what we're really trying to do with the Leadership Council is to raise the profile of Holy Cross in the New York metro area and really benefit graduates and students really at all levels through every phase of your career and every phase of your life by creating a business network that is at its core Holy Cross. The council has been around for many, many years. The main fundraiser that we do is each year, with the exception of this year, and the goal is that we're going to have our next dinner. So it's a great dinner opportunity for people to come together with their classmates. It's like a little mini reunion. This year, the plan is to have it on May 4th. Frank Palacio is the honoree, and we are very excited that that it will be an opportunity to get everybody back together once this whole COVID mess is behind us. So with that, keep an eye on your emails. We will send out information to let you know that we are going to be going forward with that. And so in the next couple of months, you should be getting inundated with invites. So everybody should look, and we invite you all to come and enjoy it. Right now, we're going to jump into the discussion for the evening. what Ann and Brian don't know is I actually have a mute button. I'm going to ask questions, and then they're going to have 2 minutes to respond. And if they go over time, I'm going to mute them. No, that's actually just a joke. What we're going to try to do is have a little conversation here, and we love to do these things in person. So we'll see how this whole Zoom thing goes, but I think it'll work pretty well. So we're going to start with some background, and we'll go to Ann first. And one of the questions is, well, where did you grow up? Where are you from? And what brought you to Holy Cross?
Well, great. Good evening, everyone. And Chris, thank you to you for your leadership of the New York Leadership Council. It's just great what you're doing. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed on May 4th because it's so great when we're all together. And thanks for the invitation to join you and Brian for our little chat this evening. I've been really looking forward to it. So, okay, first, so where am I from? I grew up in Braintree, Massachusetts. It's just south of Boston. I was blessed with just a loving, wonderful family. My mother was a nurse. So from mom, we always got this focus on caring for other people. My dad was a career salesman turned entrepreneur. He started his own business when we were young kids. And that business is owned and run by my 3 brothers today. So that's where I really got a passion for business and got some early business experience. And as I said, I have 3 brothers. My oldest brother, John Schiffman, went to Holy Cross. He was 3 years ahead of me. And from the first day he went there, I was infatuated with Holy Cross. And there was no other school that I wanted to go to. It was just Holy Cross. And I think I've been infatuated with it ever since, and even more so today. And my brother, started a family legacy, actually. His oldest daughter, Alexandra, graduated in 2015. My oldest son, Jack, graduated in 2017. And we're hoping in the future, there's lots more family members. So that's just a little bit about what got me to Holy Cross. I want to hear about Brian now.
All right, there you go. That's a lot of pressure, Brian. Now you got to come up with a really good story to top that.
Well, I mean, first off, thank you for the invite, Chris. It's an honor to be here with you and Ann, and thank you, Morris Sweeney, for putting this all together as well. And my path to Holy Cross is one that's a little bit of an athletic journey, but it also started with me being born in Jacksonville, Florida. And my mom was a single parent who did just everything, was mom, dad, and worked multiple jobs as a member of the Social Security Administration for 30 some odd years, and just provided for my brother and I. And I went to a Catholic high school that was somewhat of a feeder to Holy Cross. It was Bishop Kinney High School in Jacksonville. And another former basketball alum, Lauren Davis, also went to my high school. And I was fortunate enough to get spotted by Holy Cross during my somewhere, I guess, after my sophomore year, between my junior and senior year, and had some choices to make between academic institutions and to play college basketball. And Holy Cross from the very beginning was the best choice. It was the best balance of what I felt was going to be social, academic, and very much basketball competition. And I was looking for a well-rounded experience, and I ended up getting so much more out of my time on the Hill, and even to the degree that I've now that I'm back on the East Coast, I've recently moved back to New York for the role I'm in now, and I brought my daughter up to campus for the first time last fall for homecoming. And the other day, just randomly, she was like, "Hey Dad, when COVID's over, can we go back up to camp?" And like it's an amazing draw. She was like, she's drawn to it because I think it's a different experience than what she had ever seen. And she's been on USC's campus and UCLA's campus, but I think she herself, it opened my eyes to how special a place when you can see it through your own kids. So I'm excited to be on the Hill a lot more coming up.
And she clearly likes the weather. too, just like those other schools he's looking at. Perfect. All right, so Brian, let's stick with you here. When you got to campus, where'd you live?
Oh, I think I was in Milady my first year. Yeah, so I think that was it was like second floor. So I was on campus, and it was and I roomed with one of my freshman teammates, and we were just we just got into it, and I happened to it was actually my roommate met his wife the very first day of school at Holy Cross. Carlos Clark, he and Amanda Clark are we're still very close, and they met each other that first day and have been inseparable ever since. And I didn't have the same luck, but yeah, it's fond memories of that dorm.
Yeah, that's it. He's gonna text in a question here, like, hey, thanks for the shout out on the the dating scene. All right, Ann, where did you live?
I lived on Carlin too. And that was part of the magic of my Holy Cross experience. I remember my brother said, "Oh, you got Carlin, like you need to live on a hill dorm." And I was thinking, did I get a bad dorm? What's this all about? Day one, I met my best friends, who are still my best friends today. And that was part of the magic of Holy Cross for me. There's 14 of us that are on a group text, and we're still on this group text today. And there's the saying, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. And for me, that is absolutely true, because think about it. You're 18 years old when you're going off to college. You're becoming an adult, right? Your parents hand you off and you're becoming an adult. And to have a group of friends that helps you do that, that guides you, that challenges you, that inspires you. My friends did all of that and more. And so when I look at them, I hope I have pieces of all of them, because, when I left Holy Cross, I just felt ready for the world, and they had so much to do with that. So, I'm so grateful for them. And they're friends who are just, we're there for each other in good times and bad. There's the weddings, there's the funerals. When someone needs to be celebrated, we celebrate them. When we needed to have our COVID happy hours and talk and say, what are you doing? How's your family? What are you reading? What movies are you watching? We did that too. So that was just so foundational and so special in my Holy Cross experience.
That's great. And that goes back probably when you graduated, like 5, 6 years ago, something like that. So it's great.
Yeah.
You're still close.
I am so young. I just look old. I'm actually very young. So, it was supposed to be our 35th. So I'm telling you how old I am. Our 35th reunion in June. So we did a Zoom call instead. That's what we did.
There you go. I was just teasing you. You don't have to take the bait on these things. I'm just trying to make it interesting for people listening in. All right, let's stick with you, Ann. What was your major?
I was an econ major, economics. Yeah.
Okay. And then how about a little about what you were involved in, extracurriculars?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it was an econ major, but I tried to take everything. So the classes I really remember are my art history, philosophy, literature. The combination I thought was just amazing. In terms of activities, service, as you guys know, it's just there, it's expected. So I was involved with SPUD. All of my friends were as well. We were all big sisters. I was a CCD teacher. It was just like part of our experience to get involved from a service aspect. I was also on this campus center board of directors. I don't know if they still have that, but we planned like all the social events. So I was booking the band for the pub and the spring weekend activities. And I'm not sure how I ended up doing that. Someone better than me could have done that. But it, it certainly got me engaged on campus. And like anything in life, the more you get engaged and involved, I think the more satisfaction and fulfillment that you get from it.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. All right, Brian, we're going to kick back to you. What was your major, and to the extent you had any time at all in between games and practices, did you do anything else? Were you able to get involved in other stuff?
So, for some inexplicable reason, I chose mathematics as my major, and nobody else in my orbit decided to go that route. And so it was kind of a solo endeavor, and for the most part, I did it out of laziness because I didn't want to write a lot of papers, and I was pretty good. I thought I was pretty good at math. But I quickly found by the time I got to my junior year and I got to my advanced math classes that I was just okay at math. And really, and I would say that my degree is more of a testament to perseverance and resilience and networking more than it is me being a great mathematician. I found there was a lot of group projects. Thank you very much to all my professors. And I was able to learn how to be a part of a team. And I promise you, I was not leading a lot of these. I was not a thought leader in any of these groups. I was trying to be as active a participant as I could. And if it meant going out and getting coffee for people in the math lab late at night, if it meant whatever it took for me to be active and kind of whatever we were studying or whatever project we had going on, I tried to do that. From an extracurricular standpoint, there wasn't much time beyond basketball, but even as a team, we would always, every semester, we do 2 or 3 things per semester where we go out into the community, to the Worcester community, either do a soup kitchen or go to an elementary school and do and mentor in that way. Black Student Union was active as a student in the BSU, and for the most part, try to just really as I look back on it, I think one of the greatest, if I were to do it all over again, I would have been more active in the broader community. And I think I was really focused in my efforts in a lot of my social circles. But the people who I've come to, and the colleagues, not colleagues, but the classmates and just the fellow alumni who I've come to develop relationships with since graduation, it definitely speaks to how special a place that Holy Cross is, and I've known that, and I've come to learn that prior, post graduation, more than I did when I was on the Hill, I have to say.
Right, and that's actually a great segue into the next question I have for you, and that is thinking about your experiences and thinking about the skill development that you took away from your time at Holy Cross. Do you still use some of those skills and some of those just experiences in your leadership today?
You know what? I remember freshman year coming onto campus, and I can't remember the full context. It might have been part of the first year program. It might have been part of, but I remember that for our class, there was this overarching question of how then shall I live? And in every course of study that we took, I think that question was thread through it that first year. And it was, for me, it still sticks with me today, but it was revelatory in the sense that it didn't matter if it was a math class or a history class or whatever it was, philosophy, that it framed that question framed it to how I was going to walk through my not only through my studies but through life in a broader context. So I know I bring that with me, and that was a first week, first semester sort of stamp on my experience that the Jesuit education that I was getting, because I'm not Catholic, but I've been privileged to have 8 years of Catholic education between high school and college, and it has always stood out to me as just a shining beacon of what the Jesuit education brings in a broader context of service, and the fact that my impact was going to be much bigger than just kind of necessarily the career that I had or just maybe the shiny objects that come along with whatever success one might have in their career.
And we're going to throw that question over to you. Experiences, skills developed on the Hill that you use in your leadership roles today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with just kind of right from the beginning, the early leadership roles where you really need some help and things to draw upon. And I remember interviewing on campus for what ended up being my first job. I went to work for the E&J Gallo Winery, and by the way, it was my second choice. I thought I was going to work for this other company. It was going to be in Boston. I was all set and I didn't get the offer. So it was a big disappointment. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, how can I ever deal with this? Ended up getting the offer from Gallo, but I remember sitting in the waiting room for the interview with the other folks, classmates who were interviewing. And a woman who was sitting next to me, also interviewing, had this big like encyclopedia of wine book. It was a book all about wine. And I thought, ooh, I definitely did not prepare right for this interview. Like, I've hardly ever had wine. Like, I don't know anything about wine. I can't even pronounce wines. I can today, by the way. I know a lot more about wine today. At that point, nothing. So I doubted myself for a second, saying, wow, maybe that was the wrong preparation. As it turns out, they were recruiting for a management development program, and they were looking for leadership. And that's what the interview was all about. So I was fortunate enough to get the job. It was not in Boston, it was in California. I started in San Diego. So that was kind of a big, good thing my friends had gotten me ready as a whole person, because I really felt ready to kind of do something bold and make a big move like that. But at that time, moving to California was like telling your parents you're moving to China today. Like who moves from Boston to San Diego? It was unheard of at the time, but it's a little more common, I think today. And it was a great move. So after a year in my first role, I was a sales representative in San Diego. I got moved to Los Angeles as the district manager. And all of a sudden I had 10 people reporting to me. So I was probably 23 years old, only a year experience under my belt. Mostly everyone on that team had much more experience, like years of experience, some of the people. And in order to make that work, really the only thing I could rely on is my own values and who I was as a person. And, what was ringing through my head, my mother used to recite poetry in the kitchen all the time. And she'd recite this above all, to thine own self be true, and it will follow as sure the night, the day, that you canst not then be false to any man. And it was ringing in my head, be true to yourself, to thine own self be true. And what that really is about is authenticity. So don't try to be this, I couldn't try to be this big experienced manager because I just didn't have the experience. But what I could rely on are the values that I've developed. I developed, at Holy Cross and through my life of, respecting people, caring about people, listening to people, and serving people. And, I learned very early on that leadership and good leadership is all about serving other people. And I think the sooner you learn that as a leader, the much better you will be as a leader. So asking questions like, well, how can I help? How are you doing? Spending the time to let people know you actually care about them. People care more about that than whether you're technically capable, or they just care. Does this person know me? Do they care about me? And do they want to help? And so I was fortunate to get that type of leadership experience very early in my career. And so much of what Holy Cross was all about, men and women for others, serving others, that was the big idea. That was the theme of learning to be a leader in the business world.
And that's so spot on in so many ways. And I too have a similar E&J Gallo moment where, like, on my first job interview, actually I think I went on the interview maybe the week before Cape Week, before I was getting ready to graduate, and a Holy Cross alum, Steve Anderson, who helped me get an interview for production assistant at ESPN. Yeah. And I arrived at this interview knowing I knew sports a little bit, and I played sports obviously, but I arrived at this interview and I did not know that the interview was going to be like a quiz show. And it was like, and essentially I was being asked the most obscure, arcane sports questions that one could ask. And after about maybe 15 or 20 minutes of getting everyone, I was like, okay, if he limits it to college football, or does it, if he hits my teams, I might be able to, like, BS my way through. But after he asked me who won the 1990 Vezina Trophy, and I essentially said, what's the Vezina Trophy? I kind of knew I was dead in the water at that point. Yeah. And so I really had to your point about authenticity and just about critical thinking, that I know it was such a focus at Holy Cross. I was able to just I literally remember just being a 21-year-old, just know nothing, and just stopping the interview with this much older gentleman and just being like, Al Jaffe, I still remember him. And just being like, okay, we now know everything I don't know. So, and I just started talking about what I did know and what my experiences were on the Hill, what I knew, how I knew how to tell stories. I knew about rising action and falling action and plots and characters. And I just started talking about a liberal arts education, essentially, and kind of what I drew from that. And I still don't think I should have gotten the job. And I would probably give credit to Steve Anderson on some level for probably getting me in. But it taught me a big lesson to just stop, just like there's, like the energy one spends to BS your way through a situation is it's wasted more times than not when you can be authentic, be as transparent as one can, and just and lead and kind of lead with your principles, as you said before.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's really interesting. See, now from those two responses, we could take this thing in a whole different direction. We could talk about wine, we could talk about sports, we could talk about how when Anne went to California from Boston, she realized there actually are sports teams other than the Boston teams. And you grow up in Florida, you know that. You grow up in, the South Jersey, Philly area, you know that. But nobody from Boston knows there's any teams other than the Boston team. So it must have been a shock for Anne to see that there are actually a whole bunch of other teams out there. So, and by the way, I can see the participant numbers dropping as all these, Bostonians are like, what's that guy talking about? Philly. Anyway, we actually have a question, Brian. I want to stick with you because we have a question that came in, and the question is, did you always want to go into production, and what is it that you enjoy most about your current position?
So I did not always want to go in production. I thought that the PA job that I was applying for was going to be a 1-year kind of just stopover while I was going to study for my graduate school entrance exam, and I always wanted to be a civil engineer, to be quite honest. And then, but there was, that PA role was a 6-month temporary role to where after 6 months, you were competing against other people in your cohort to see if you were offered a full-time job. And my competitive instinct kicked in. And believe me, I made so many mistakes over that 6 months, but I pride myself of only I made every mistake once. I never made the same mistake twice. And I would just kind of keep moving through it. So after I got kept, and offered a full-time position, it kind of dawned on me, like, people do this for a living. And so my mom wanted me to go back to grad school and was like, for the first few years was like always just hounding me on to apply myself and apply to grad school. And I made a pact to myself. I was like, I'm going to do this until someone tells me I'm horrible at it. And so I'm literally on a 25-year tangent from grad school still to this day, and I have not worked a day in my life, in that respect, because I found something that I love, and ultimately through a meandering path, I found it's storytelling. I get to share the greatest part of my role is that I get to share the human condition, and sports is just the universal truths of the human condition, and it's all. And sports is just merely the context. If I don't have to worry about the final score of many things, the final scores and like who's all those quiz show answers that I was asked early in my, early in my career. I get to identify the things that really matter. I like love and perseverance and resilience and the things and overcoming. Those are the things that I get to highlight and get to share with fans. And really, my job is to serve. My job is to serve, and it's part of the ESPN mantra is to serve sports fans, anywhere. And that is, and I really don't know how lucky I got to be, I still feel lucky every day that I get to do this and call this a career.
Great. And let's switch back to you. I'm curious to hear about some of the early experiences you had, your early leadership experiences and the challenges that you faced in those earlier years. We're going to talk about the later years, but this is in the earlier years when you're starting out.
Yeah. Hey, clearly, I showed up and, had 10 people working for me and, didn't know what I was doing. So that was a challenge. But, as I mentioned, kind of relying on core values is important. Another challenge is kind of making decisions on, where you go with your career. So I had been with Gallo for 3 years. I had a different job each year. But then I had an opportunity with PepsiCo. And, part of me, loyalty, commitment, it felt like, oh gosh, how could I possibly lead this company? It's been so fulfilling. But, it was important to look ahead to the future. And I knew PepsiCo was a fabulous company, a lot of reach, globally, so many opportunities based on the East Coast. I knew probably someday I wanted to get back to the East Coast. And so, at Holy Cross, and the Jesuits often talk about this notion of discernment. And it really plays in throughout your life when you are you're making these big decisions, and you sort of have to kind of put it out there and get advice, think, pray. That's what I did on big decisions like that. But ultimately, you do find the answer within yourself as to what the right thing is to do. So, for me, that was, I moved from LA from San Diego again to Seattle, and I started with PepsiCo, and, was off on a new track. I think, as you go through all of these stages, sometimes it's about challenging yourself and making yourself feel uncomfortable. And what I have found throughout my career, and certainly my life, every time I, kind of have that pit in my stomach a little bit, feeling a little discomfort, coming out of that is when I've grown the most. So to me, discomfort equals growth. While you're going through it, it's not fun, right? When you're in a new role, when you don't know what you're doing or taking on a big challenge, it can feel kind of daunting at the moment. But every once in a while, I'll challenge myself, like, have you felt uncomfortable lately? Because that really has been the thing that's kind of helped my growth the most.
Right. That actually reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, and I will paraphrase it a bit, from Richard Branson, where he says, hey, if somebody offers you an amazing opportunity and you don't think you can do it, just say yes and then figure it out later, right? That's the that's the key.
Saying yes.
We got another question for you. What's that?
Oh, no. I was just going to say, saying yes has led to so many, like, of those moments, like, where you have the butterflies, in your stomach. Right. And to the place where, like, I know now sometimes I seek those butterflies, especially when my team comes to me with an idea. Yeah. And if it doesn't make me sufficiently nervous, then I want them to go think a little bit bigger, and I think that's one of my barometers, is like, ooh, that's intriguing. That's never been done. And it draws me in a lot of ways to kind of, now how can I help them make this, really execute this and make this better?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Let me jump back to Ann for a second, because we have a question for you, Ann, that just came in, and Could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a woman in the business world?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, I think, when I think about sort of where I am today, and then I think way back to when I was doing that Gallo interview and moving to California, um, you know, when I thought about my future, I really did not know what kind of path I would take, because I knew that at some point I wanted to get married, which I did. Husband John from San Diego, so it was really good not getting that other job because I met John in San Diego. We've had 3 children, which has been, fabulous. But I had always kind of had this doubt and wondered, like, am I able to have a really good career and have a family and, be the mother and spouse who I want to be? And so it really, particularly the early stages, before even getting married and having kids, I wondered that. And then once, the family came along, I still wondered that. And in many ways, I would continuously hold myself back a little bit. Like, yeah, you know what? I don't think I better take this next role because I think this is all I can do. And, every time I'd get promoted or in a new role, I'd say to my husband, this is it. I'm not going any further than this. This is the top. And I've been saying that for a very long time. And only because I did have that doubt, not doubt, but just a big question mark as to, is it possible? Because I didn't want to compromise anything. I didn't want to compromise as a mother. I didn't want to compromise as an executive. And so, I wish I didn't have as much of that doubt. And when I talk to women today, I try to really get in touch with that. Like, don't create the doubt before you need to create it. Just kind of go for it and, make decisions as they come. So I think I did continuously hold myself back. And then finally I figured it out, like, wow, this is really working. And I can do that. But that was probably the biggest barrier for me, is my own thinking around, is it even possible? Also, I wish there were more role models. Today there are more role models. I was in so many situations where, I was the only woman. And, I felt ready for that. I grew up with all brothers. Like, I felt like I could handle that, but I would seek role models out, because that's how you see that it's possible, and say, oh, look at that woman. She's done it. She's had this successful career. And then, you get curious as to, how you enable that. So I haven't felt held back as a woman beyond holding myself back for so many times. But finally I got over it. And then I figured out, oh my gosh, like, you can do this. So it was good to finally recognize, in myself that is possible.
Right. And Brian, we have a similar question for you. What has your experience been in the business world as a person of color?
It's been uneven, I would say. And the good news is that I've found great mentors and sponsors along the way who've shown me how to lead, and who I've cribbed everything that I use, and I use it today. But there's a definite dozen years in the middle of my career where, and it was probably where I got my first real, I wasn't blessed at 23 to have 10 people reporting to me. I was more of a project employee at that point in time. But then at around 32, I got my first team. And I remember being halfway through, I'd moved from HBO Sports to the NFL Media Group. And HBO was just built on premium content, like where almost budget was not it was like, it just mattered how good it was, what was the quality of it. And that was always going to be the standard bearer for everything that we were doing. But when I got to the NFL Media Group, there was a different fiscal concern, shall we say. So I was a quarter of the way through the fiscal calendar, but I had spent almost 60% of my budget, because I was trying to make everything such a quality effort, and I wasn't just feeding the beast. And I remember my leader at that time bringing me in and just saying, you have the job. like, you don't have to prove that you can do this job anymore. Like, you have it. And it was, and he didn't say it as nicely as that, by the way, but I received the message was like, my job was not to go out and prove that I could do the executing anymore. It was now to build an apparatus that was going to serve the business, you know, to the best way it could. And at that moment, I saw that to what Ann had said earlier, my role needed to become more of, instead of a player, more of a coach, more of a GM, more of a support for those who are now the doers on my staff. So that was a great jumping off. But over that 12-year period, at that particular role, I saw my career path flatline, despite, you know, having a lot of exterior success. You know, I was always on budget. I was winning Emmy Awards. There was a lot of things that were markers of my success, but I wasn't finding a career path. That was, and to be quite honest, a lot of it was because I was not part of a particular group. And I moved through the world in a little bit different way. I didn't understand the value in managing up. I didn't understand the value in a lot of corporate nuance. I look back at just my own personal bio, and growing up without a father, there was no conversations like Ann talked about, like with her family owning a business. I'm sure there were family conversations around the business, around the dinner table, about business and understanding. I was solo. I was a first generation white collar employee, and I had no real safety net. And I struggled for a lot of years. And I know and the only thing that ultimately saved me is that I kept raising my hand to do different things. And even though my career was not ascending the way I thought it was, I was collecting an array of different experiences. And then once the bridge, you know, once the dam finally broke, and I did get to, you know, maybe a deserved place, or what I thought was a deserved place, I had collected such a diverse set of experiences that by the time ESPN Plus was looking to start this new streaming service and original content for sports that had never been started in the world of sports, I was able to go have a conversation that was pretty natural and pretty organic about all the different things I had done. And because there was nobody who had the resume to do this new thing, I was just able to talk about, hey, here's how I solve, here's how I reverse engineer problems, and here's how I see the marketplace heading, and here's what I know about this particular field and how I would approach it. And but being a man of color is you know, it depends on the person. You can use it as a crutch, or you can use it as your advantage, because there's only a few of me around, and my uniqueness is my strength. And now it's my job, now that I'm in a position of leadership, now it's my job to not only to be a champion for representation of others who look like me, but to also to be a champion of diversity, and to create a business and to create units that are representative of the fans we serve. So that's become a real big passion of mine as a leader.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point that you made at the end, and I want to come back to that as we get towards the end of the hour here. But a question for you, just based upon what you were just talking about. Ann was talking a little earlier about her experience and kind of her leadership style. How would you describe your leadership style, and how was it formed through the path that brought you to where you are? What's your, you know, if you're talking about that particular thing that you rely on to lead your teams?
Ann said it. It's servant leadership. It's very much the bigger the job. I know that in every step of my career, I move farther away from the core competency that essentially got me that next job. So I don't get a chance to go out into the field and interview like A-list athletes anymore. I have teams of people who do that. So I get to share my experience and really put my team in a position to do their best work, and then to set a vision set a, hopefully what is a clear vision and mission for what we're trying to accomplish. Set up parameters to hold myself and the team accountable, and then I cheerlead like hell. I check in with people. I over check in with people. Like Ann was spot on. Like it is about the connection more than it is, it's about the Billies and Joes more than it is about the X's and O's. It is about the people, and I really do try to make sure that there's almost just like a wellness check, especially what we're going through with the pandemic. Like one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we started a daily check-in meeting with my team. It was a half hour, unscripted more times than not. And half the time we're not even talking business. We instituted a song of the day just to kind of have people just like really just kind of share themselves. And there's, we had people who were affected by the pandemic in various different ways, and we cried. There was everything going on from prayer visuals to sharing recipes. It's just a matter of like, hey, how are we just doing wellness checks on each other, so that when I do need someone on that team to kind of go the extra mile, they know that I care about them. They know that we are all interconnected and that we care about each other. I've long since dispatched on the work-life balance. It is just work-life, interconnectedness and work-life integration. I seek those things more than I do, because I'm fortunate to love what I do. And so when an email comes in late at night, yeah, it's whatever. We're going to figure it out.
Gosh.
Yeah, that's thank you, COVID. We're now all 24/7, 365, right? And let's go back to you, and I want to ask you first, and then Brian, I'm going to ask you the same question, and because I think it's important. As you're developing the next generation of leaders, you're in a position now where you are influencing people. You have an opportunity to set them up to become the leaders of tomorrow. And what do you value most when you're developing these leaders? What are you looking for in an up and coming leader, and what do you do to help to develop those skills?
Yeah, sure. And that's clearly a huge part of what I'm focused on today. It's the most important part of my job, is kind of developing this next generation of leaders. But at the same time, delivering on the business and everything else that we get paid to do. But it's one of my favorite parts about my role as well, because it really gives it some true purpose. I have just kind of 4 C's. So that I kind of keep in mind, whether it's interviewing someone for a role, bringing someone for the outside, or, developing people on the team. First, and it should be first, second, and third, is character. Because you can't skip that stage. You can find the most capable, competent person, but if a person's core character isn't aligned with the values of the company, it will never work. So, by character, it's what is the person's values? Is this person honest? Does he or she have integrity? Are they caring? I mean, it's amazing how you can get pretty good at finding that pretty quickly in people that you work with, or people that you're just meeting for the first time. But, that's number one. The second would be competence. So clearly, you need people who know what they're doing for the most part, right? And I say for the most part because I have often kind of made a bet on someone who maybe didn't have exactly the right set of experience, background for the job that I was putting that person into. But I saw something, one, the character, 2, competence in a different way. So it might have been transferable skills. So maybe I was putting someone in a marketing job that had only done sales, but I saw the transferable skills. I saw the learning agility. So the ability to say, well, you've been put in a different situation, you've learned quickly. So when I say competence, it doesn't have to be technical, functional, exact all the time, but a broader kind of learning agility, transferable skills. The third that's really important to me is courage. courage. We talked a little bit about getting that, but the butterflies in your stomach, the pit in your stomach to do tough things. Whether it's taking on a challenging business situation, whether it's going after a new opportunity that's really hard. And that's probably why it's never been done before, because it's really hard. We need people who have the courage to really put themselves out there to make amazing things happen. And then, the fourth C is this notion of compassion. When I think of compassion, I think of the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to say, so it could be an employee, it could be a customer, and say, how does that person really feel? Do I understand what's important to that customer or to that employee? And am I truly listening? And can I act upon that? So if you put that all together, that's a pretty amazing person when you can say, hey, this person has character. They have the competence to ultimately do this job. They have the courage to do big things, to have tough conversations, and they have compassion that allows them to really relate with other people. So that's kind of my own personal checklist as I look at.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love it. All right. Well, we're getting to the end, but Brian, I have a question for you here that I want to make sure we ask. Advice for rising leaders. What do you got for the folks out there that are the up and coming leaders?
I would say for the up and coming leaders, you know what? I think taking Ann's list for one is and just really applying those is a great place to start. I also I value relentless collaboration. So that, in a creative space that I get a chance to work in, I think just being able to work across functions and across teams is always really really important. And then the curious, I love those folks who are curious, but and those, and then young leaders, I would say the thing that I've found most helpful as I found my own lane as a leader is to think on behalf of the business. If I'm here to serve my team, I'm also here to serve the business. And what problems exist that I may know a little bit about and that I have interest in solving that people may not have asked me to kind of be involved in, and just think around the corner for my bosses. And so I'm always looking for opportunities to solve problems that my bosses don't even know they have. And so as a young leader, I think learning how to follow and learning how to become aligned with the business priorities and understanding that once you understand what the parameters are you're working within, you can then be your full authentic self and bring that to the table to help accomplish those broader goals. And I think a lot of leaders get a lot of new leaders get just kind of waylaid a little bit by thinking that there's a power dynamic that they now want to pull from. And I think that power dynamic is actually one where I think when I actively flatten out that power structure and I pull people together, that my results tend to multiply.
Yeah, that's excellent. And you may not even realize this. You just added 2 C's to Ann's 4. Now there's 6 C's.
Notice
That's
that.
outstanding. I'm gonna take them all and pretend they're mine because I like them. That's a good takeaway from today.
I could listen to Brian all day. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We got one more quick question I'm going to try to sneak in, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Maura. And this is a question for Ann. And I'm going to ask you the question, and then I'm going to give you some lawyerly advice, okay? So the question is, what is your favorite Pepsi product? And my lawyerly advice is don't answer that question because they're like children, I'm sure, right? You love them all, and they're all equally great. So go ahead.
That's the hardest question of the day. They are all like children, but I can have a favorite. I like our Pure Leaf iced tea. It's absolutely delicious. And I love Stacy's pita chips. And people might not realize either one of those are PepsiCo products, but so that's easy. That's my favorite.
All right. Okay, there you go. Good plug. And we're sponsored by Pepsi this evening, everyone, not the New York Leadership Council. That's what we've just established. So, all right. Well, I want to thank Ann and I want to thank Brian. That was a really, I would have rather done it in person, but this was pretty good. I really like the, I like the back and forth. And Maura, I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'll jump into this conversation and reiterate what Chris said. Thank you so much for taking so much time out of your evening to share your advice and all of your great thoughts with us. I always take lots of really good notes. And I know I've gotten lots of additional questions that came in through the Q&A and a number of comments from people just saying how much they really enjoy the advice that you have to share. So thank you all very, very much.
Maura, thank you. I think we need to thank Chris as well. Gosh, you may have another career, you know, if you want to get out of the legal profession at all. So you did a masterful job. And then Brian, we do need to continue the conversation because you just seem to have a wonderful perspective on life, on business, and on leadership. And I gained so much from hearing you tonight. So thank you.
You and I are not done, Ann. We're gonna definitely connect offline on this. And and if any of those questions like need to be answered, like kind of as separate from the Zoom, then we can please forward them our way, Maura.
Brian and I will make a personal phone call, right? We'll just tag team it. And
whatever we have to do.
That's right. And then on May 4th, we'll gather at the Pierre for the Leadership Council dinner, and we can continue the conversation there. So people can come meet everybody in person. That'll be something to look forward to.
Perfect. And Brian, you can give us a sneak peek at those Emmys.
Yeah, I have to bring them.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. As I mentioned, this call has been recorded and we'll share the recording once it's ready for all of you. And I just want to thank you so much for joining in this Holy Cross conversation. It really does showcase how great a Holy Cross education is and what wonderful leaders it can produce. So have a great evening. I look forward to future conversations with Ann, Chris, and Brian. And I hope all of you will join us for another Holy Cross alumni event soon. Have a wonderful day. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.